Hi, Matt. Nice to meet you. Thanks
Hi,
for taking
nice to
the
meet you,
time to
Dan.
talk to us. Firstly, if you could just give us a bit of background about what Hiyield do and what makes it so special.
Yeah, sure. So Hiyield, we're a digital product studio. So that essentially means that we create digital products. So that's web applications, websites, mobile apps, and we're now full service as a team. So I think that's probably what makes us special. So when we first started 3 years ago, we were predominantly a team of techies. So myself, I've been a CTO in a few startups, and I was leading a technical team, and myself and two of that technical team came together to start Hiyield. But we were very kind of technical in our thinking, very good at kind of making technology platforms, but less about kind of the design and user experience. And I think over the last 3 years, we've really transitioned into more of a full service product team, where we're thinking about the user at every step. So the user's included in the design process very early on. We have those user interviews, we do empathy mapping, persona development, and then we take all of that research and make sure that it goes into the digital product, so the design and the user experience, and then ultimately the technical build as well.
Okay, great. You mentioned that you started a business 3 years ago. My next question is going to be, what challenge have you faced in growing a business? Obviously, for the last 3 years, there's been a lot of challenges for everyone. So I can imagine starting a business in that time has been keeping you busy, I suspect.
Definitely, yeah. So I think it's been for our sector especially. I think I've seen a lot of businesses actually thrive. So companies are turning towards kind of digital and technology to optimize or kind of streamline their work processes, and automate things as well. So I feel like for us, certainly the last 18 months have been very good from a business point of view, but it has brought its own set of unique challenges. So scaling the team. So we were 3 people 3 years ago when we started. We're now a team of 16, and before COVID we were a team of 6. So actually, it's kind of the team has grown quite dramatically over the period of COVID, and I guess the challenge is recruitment in a small business. So it's making, especially for development. So our developers kind of have various different technology stacks that they use, from front end kind of JavaScript stacks, JavaScript framework based stacks, to kind of back end Python, Microsoft.NET stacks, and hiring those developers has definitely been a challenge over the last 18 months. And I think probably of all of the areas, that's been the most challenging to hire in. And I think probably coupled with that, it's actually when you're growing a business, and for us, I mean, it's not exceptional growth in kind of the grand scheme of things, but for us, obviously, it was quite exceptional growth, and that in itself is challenging because we needed to put kind of processes in place to make sure that growth was sustainable. We weren't just going to grow and then kind of shrink back down again. So I think that was probably our biggest challenges: recruitment and scaling the team.
Yeah, I think we act for a number of tech businesses and businesses across all sectors, and recruitment has been a massive challenge for everyone. It seems like over the last 12 months, maybe a little less than that, when people have been coming out of the pandemic and having the confidence to kind of carry on their business plan. So you won't be on your own with those problems, as I'm sure you know, speaking to other people within your sector. So 3 years ago, you set a business up. Why did you decide to do it then? And what was the plan behind it at that point?
So I've worked in agencies before. So in 2008, I joined. It was my first digital agency, where we were making kind of mainly kind of marketing, websites, CMS, and some e-commerce stuff as well. So I did 3 years in that agency and had just a really good time as a developer. I was a developer in that agency, and learned a lot. And then one of the products, I'm going to call it a product, back then it would just been called kind of a web application, we made, or I made as part of a team there, actually went and got some third-party funding. Okay. So they invited me to become their lead software developer, and I left the agency, and that was that was in 2012, and that was my first step into startup life. So I was lead developer, then CTO in that first company, and then I actually left that company to join another health tech startup as their CTO, and over 5 years grew that business with them. So kind of really took an idea to market, grew it, and I'd been there for 5 years, and then established a technology team within that startup. And I think what we all appreciated was there's the startups kind of move in phases. There's the very early, kind of very fast-paced conceptual stuff where you're thinking about the idea, putting it together, then bringing it to market. And then there's kind of the scaling and all that other stuff associated with that. And we really enjoyed kind of the upfront conception, building the technology platform and product from scratch. I just thought actually we'd like to do this with other companies. So we originally started Hiyield with the vision of it being a digital agency for founders, for startups essentially. And that's why we wanted to do it. Wanted to help as many founders on their journeys with startup ideas as we could. And I think we have done that. So most of our clients, certainly in the first 12, 18 months, were startup businesses. So founders who had an idea and needed to take it to market, or founders who had an idea and then needed a bit more help to kind of get it ready for investment, or those kind of scenarios. And then in the last 12 months, we have actually started picking up a few enterprise clients as well. So we now have a bit more of a diverse client base, but predominantly we see ourselves as very founder friendly. We've been founders ourselves. We've kind of lived those journeys, and that's why we wanted to set up Hiyield, to work with those founders and make new companies.
Yeah, and I've had a quick look through your website. You've worked with some really interesting businesses and some really exciting projects as well in that time.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind 3 years, to be honest with you, but all good fun.
Has it been like 3 years?
In some ways, it feels a lot longer, and then in other ways, it feels like it was only yesterday we were setting up. But yeah, it's certainly been a lot going on in the last 3 years.
Yeah, well, so you say you have 9 members of staff now, and you started with 3, so you've tripled sort of the staff, the overheads of the staff costs in 3 years, which is, like you said, I understand what you were saying. It's not as big as the bigger companies growing, but actually, for you guys, that's massive.
Yeah,
I think to do that in such a short amount of time is a really big achievement.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it feels quite. I mean, it felt challenging as we were going through those kind of growth phases, because we would kind of hire some, and then we'd have a period of stability, and then we would realise that we needed to scale again, and another influx of people would come in. And I think the hardest thing in recruiting was challenging, but then bringing the right kind of people into the team, because we're very precious of our culture at Hiyield, and the team are all, everyone gets on. It's a very kind of it's a fun environment to work, and everyone, I think, is aligned on what they want to do kind of personally, but also kind of the goals and objectives of the company. So getting the right people to fit the scaling plans was also quite challenging, but very pleased with the results.
And I guess, given what you do and the way you work, are you that concerned about where somebody is based? Would you happily take on someone based in Scotland if they're the right fit for you?
So just recently, during the first lockdown, we took on someone in Bournemouth, just because they were the right person at the right time, and we thought we weren't working in an office at that point, so we thought everyone's working remote technically. Yeah. All of the team at that point were based in Cornwall, but we weren't seeing each other on a daily basis other than virtually. So we thought, let's do that, and let's hire remote. So that was our first remote position, and it worked out really well. And since then, we've also hired someone in London as well. So we have very much a hybrid team at the moment. Obviously, 90% over of the team is down in Cornwall, but we have started recruiting remotely and are open to that, because I feel like, if anything, the last 18 months has taught us how to work as a hybrid team. So how to work when people are in the office, out the office, and mix together.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen that here, and I've seen that with other clients, and I think it's what the last 18 months has shown is that you don't need to be picky about where someone's based. You need to be picky about a person and the fit for your team. And I think in the past, maybe people had it the other way around. So now I say, like, keeping hold of the culture you develop and make sure that people work well, you can focus on that rather than if someone's got a 10-minute commute to the office.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. So what's next for Hiyield?
That's a very good question. So yeah, we're into our 4th year. So kind of our 4th year started at the beginning of October. That's when our financial year, or that's when we kind of set the business up. So I think we're planning to grow more of the design and user experience elements of our business. So at the moment we have 8 developers in the team, but up until only recently we only had 1 designer with a contract designer as well. So I think we're consciously understanding, but now we are more of a full service team, offering kind of a product studio service. So thinking about things in terms of product, which in my mind, product is kind of the combination of design, user experience, and technology to make a product. We want to be expanding that side of our business. So we're going to be doing some recruitment for kind of UX, UI designers in the next few months, building that area of our business and looking to take on more of those the kind of full service product projects. And that's coupled with the fact that we now have that person in London. So David's joined us as head of new business in London. So while we're reasonably well known in Cornwall and some of the southwest, the southeast is obviously we don't really have any visibility there. So we're looking to grow our brand and our visibility in the southeast and look to start working with some of those clients as well.
Yeah, good. So the reason we're talking today is because you've become a finalist in the Tech Southwest Awards. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Why did you feel now was the right time to enter those awards?
So I think it was the fact that we were coming when we entered. We were heading towards our end of the 3rd year, and we felt we'd reached enough kind of maturity as a company where we had a stable and growing team. We had a client base that we were very proud of and projects that we completed that we were very proud of. So we felt, now was a good time to get involved with something like this award so that we can actually get some recognition from that. And actually we'd be confident that we were entering it with a good chance of winning.
Yeah. I mean, I think the phrase startup business and scale up business, depending on the business and how well they've done over the first few years, I would say it's quite rare for people to get out of that startup phase within the first 2 or 3 years. But actually listening to you, it sounds like you're very much into the scale up stage already. From how quick you're in that, you're in that, and startup is behind you now. You're very much scaling up with the plans and the ideas you've got.
Yes, it's kind of I've had a few quite even in the last couple of weeks I've had a few slightly tongue-in-cheek conversations with people in the office saying it kind of feels like we're a proper company now, which is a little bit scary in some ways. But we definitely there's definitely a startup kind of vibe to the way, but and culturally I think we're quite startup. We're still very kind of flat as an organization structure, but we are now starting to realize that we do need some structure in place, and we do have kind of defined leads in certain areas of the business. So it does feel like we're kind of transitioning into that scale up phase, and looking to grow the business.
Yes, certainly the challenges you've mentioned and the things you've talked about have been very much scale up issues rather than startup issues.
Yeah,
I'd agree. And just to end this conversation, and something we've asked a few people is, if you could give advice to somebody starting out now in their own business and trying to grow a tech business, what advice would that be?
So for trying to grow a tech business, I think there's a few things to consider. So for technology, I guess within my career, there's technology obviously changed a huge amount, and I think earlier on in my career, technology was always in the forefront of any new platform or web application or mobile app that's going to be built, and actually to a degree, technology dictated what was actually built. I think what I've learned over the last 10 to 15 years is actually technology. The way technology is used nowadays is so advanced to where it was before, but you can do some incredibly powerful things. But it shouldn't be technology leading that conversation. It should be your users leading that conversation. So I think my advice would be, technology is very important, but don't let technology dictate the end product. Let the users of your product dictate that product, and use technology to facilitate how you get there. And from a business point of view, I think cash flow, lots of people told me this when I was first starting. Most important thing, cash flow. Make sure your cash flow is in a healthy state, because if things like COVID come along and nobody wants to pay you, then you won't have a business quite quickly if you don't have a healthy cash flow.
That's great advice. I feel like I should offer you a job here. Great. Thanks for that, Matt. And I'll sign off there. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks a lot.